Okay, so today I want to tell my first birth story, because it's something that I just feel like should be on camera and recorded, and it's something that I know very well. Um, so, oh dear, my now husband and I got pregnant. Um, we're so grateful we got pregnant right when we planned to. And it was our first time trying, and I know not a lot of people are lucky like that, but here's just sometimes you are that lucky. I've known people who planned to not be as successful, and it happens when it happens. People like, oh well, it's probably gonna take a few months, and then they are basically expecting it for it to be a few months, and then they get pregnant right away. So it happens when it happens. And sorry, I'm nervously shedding my hair, and I'm still breastfeeding, so still definitely postpartum hormonal, and the hair just sheds. I also have long hair, so it just happens. Anyways, so we got pregnant in, I guess technically it was February 12th of 2017, and it was a pretty easy pregnancy. I got super nauseous, and I did not get hyperemesis nauseous. I did just get regular morning sickness. It wasn't very fun. I was exhausted. I had been working super late nights. There was just no way. I was wiped out. If I sat in a comfy chair long enough, I would just fall asleep. It was just out. But overall, I had a pretty easy pregnancy. I was super excited to be pregnant. So I think that really makes a difference a lot of the time. Just because it's just the whole, you can't be grateful and angry at the same time. It's like that. Or at least it was for me. Well, I got super big because I was underweight when I got pregnant. So I had to kind of get to a healthy weight. I don't know which way the camera is orienting, so I guess it will be that way. But I had to get to a healthy weight before I actually really counted my weight gain. I'm at a healthy weight right now though, so could stand to drop a couple pounds. That has nothing to do with my birth story. I'm sorry for being distracted and having a squirrel mind sometimes. So anyways, I only got swollen once or twice that pregnancy. And it's because I ate salty foods and I was outside and I was on my feet all day. It was just all the things. It was well, of course, my feet got swollen. It was weird. Swollen feet is just weird when you're not used to it. I was planning on going to a birth center. But I had been drinking a particular tea that was not approved, and a midwife that wasn't at the practice anymore, she said we would like you to keep drinking it, so if anything does affect the baby, then we can deal with that better when the baby's out. Well, it showed up on my talk screen again, and I was well, she told me to keep drinking it because she wanted us to deal with it on the baby on the outside and not mess up my pregnancy so I risked out of there, but I still received prenatal care. I was really upset though, because I would have stopped if they had told me that it was safer. I'm glad it ended up being the way it was though, because I had never had experience with a newborn baby. You'll find out more about that in a second. So I kept getting prenatal care there, which was really nice. It's just nice receiving care from midwives, and it was just more holistic and made me feel more safe. And so being that I knew I wasn't going to birth at the birth center, I was I don't need to take their mandatory childbirth classes. YouTube classes that are probably made by a hospital are not the same. They are not the same. I knew the idea of what was going to happen, but it was I was not really prepared. I just knew I was not going to get an epidural. I had nitrous as a backup, and that was that. I'm so glad. So when I finally, I'm so glad, and I'll tell you why I just said I'm so glad when I get to that part of the story. Sometimes I will go like this in my story, but I really just want to try and stay like this. The night that I went into labor, I had been having contractions for a couple days, but not really. I can notice when you have Braxton Hicks, or any contraction, your stomach will look square, and it's really weird. And I noticed that. But it didn't hurt. Nothing was hurting. But I was like, well, maybe I have a high pain tolerance. But it wasn't timeable. And I was working from home at HSN, and I was on the phones, and I was having contractions, and they were timeable. They were coming like every 4 or 5 minutes apart, and they were lasting like 45 seconds to a minute. And I didn't have to like breathe through them, but I definitely breathed differently or stopped talking when I was having one. But it didn't hurt. It was just, wow, that's intense. Little did I know. And so I was like, well, I don't know. And we lived with my grandma, and we're in like, after I got off work, I was like, okay, they've been happening for like an hour or two. Is this it? And we're like, everyone's asleep. I'm like, I don't know. Is it it? This is literally the plight of every single first-time parent. Like, I don't know. Is it time? I don't know. And you go too early. I ate some applesauce because I didn't want to eat anything too heavy and like throw it up. And I'm like, okay, well, what if I have a high pain tolerance and I don't know? And then my grandma came out and she said, is everything okay? And I said, I think I need to go to the hospital. I just needed someone else to ask, like, hey, you all right? And so we started getting everything packed to go to the hospital. And even though we knew exactly where the hospital was, we got turned around like at one of the points. Like Google was taking us to a different spot, and Travis, my husband, is like, it's taking us the wrong way. So we went the right way. And we got there, and I guess I thought they were intense contractions already, and I wasn't really sure if my water had broken because I had lost my mucus plug, and I didn't take good childbirth education classes, so I wasn't like all the way sure. And so they were like, okay, well, you would know. And I was like, are you sure? Like sometimes people have a trickle. She's like, you would know. And I'm sitting there waiting on them. I was only like 1.5, 2 centimeters dilated. Way too early. Still very early labor. And I was group B strep positive as a coloninator. So we did choose to do antibiotics once my water had broken, which we were waiting to find out if we were going to stay or not. So I'm sitting there in the little hospital gown in the triage room on a bed, and I'm just sitting there, like dangling my feet, just sitting, and I felt and heard a pop, and then the gush, and I was like, oh, okay. So when she came back in, we told her, and now that I'm a doula, I'm pretty sure I've worked with her again, but I wish I had had the foresight to remember, like, to write down her name, because I was just all in a blur. And so my water broke, and they were like, okay, well, we'll admit you now because your water broke. And I don't think they put me on Pitocin. I really don't think they did, because I was having contractions and my water broke. Like, everything was fine. And so I just kind of was laboring, and I called. I think we waited a little while. Oh, Nanny, when she had said if everything was okay, she's like, well, do you want us to go with you? And I was like, no, because they might send us home. So I called them. I think I might have let them sleep a couple more hours. I called them and was like, oh, hey, we're at the hospital. Like, whenever you're like awake and stuff, like, come. Don't worry about coming immediately. And I called Gabby and her mom and my parents. And Gabby's mom, she had been a labor nurse there at that hospital. And sorry, my son was saying something. So I didn't realize how helpful she would be. But she was. She even wore like a NASA like failures on option shirt, and it really helped me recenter. And hold on, let me make sure this is recording, because I feel like if I just keep talking. Okay, we're good. And she ended up being my like impromptu doula, and I was really grateful for that. So I'm having contractions. I'm just like white knuckling it through these contractions. Like, there's a lot of tension and resistance and fear. I wasn't like terrified, but I was definitely holding on to the tension because I wasn't sure of what I was capable of, and I hadn't practiced for this. Like, I hadn't practiced for labor. I hadn't really done much of anything. I was just like, I know I'm not getting an epidural. Like, it's literally like, I just knew I wasn't going to do that. And I mean, not knocking anybody who does, I just knew for me that was just like not going to happen. And so I didn't. And I had the nitrous as a backup. And I just was doing the thing. But Gabby's mom brought me to center, helped Travis, because he was loving and supportive, but like he holds space better than a lot of people. But the knowing exactly how to help me without getting in the way of the process, it was hard for him, I think. Not that he's ever verbally expressed that, but now that I help partners and stuff, I can see it in those situations. So I was just dealing with contractions, and I remember looking at this white fluffy cloud as like the sun was rising. And I was like, wow, that's just really pretty. And I think that was probably like 7 or 8. It was autumn, it was fall, so it wasn't like early. And I guess it was 7. And we just kept doing the thing. And Poppy was there, Nanny was there, everybody was there. I had a lot of people. And they were like, you can have as many people as you want in the room. This is obviously pre-COVID. But when it's delivery time, you can only have 3. And Victor is my son. It was the 3rd labor that they had in that new wing of the hospital. Like they rebuilt the birthing wing of the hospital. So everyone's trying to figure out where stuff is. And like, it's kind of funny. And around like noon, I guess, it started getting a lot more intense. I don't know exactly what time it was that I started transition, but what was really hard, but at one point they told me that I felt ready to push, and they were like, don't. That was the worst part of my whole entire labor. Period. Like I bounced through like active labor, like I bounced on the ball, like I swayed back and forth. As I got more into active labor, I was so tired that I was just like passing out in the middle of contractions. Oh, not in the middle, in between contractions. And they would just like make sure that I was good. And now that I've helped people in this situation, like telling this story, and it's special. Yeah, so like falling asleep in between contractions, in the middle of contractions. You know what I mean? In between the spaces of when I was not having a contraction. I'm a little nervous, not like super nervous, but talking too much. So, and my eye was twitching. I don't know what time it was they told me not to push, but that was the worst thing ever. They got me a peanut ball. I don't know if there was a cervical lip or the doctor wasn't ready, like, because that happens. But it was horrible. Telling someone not to push a baby when they are like just the fetal, it's just it's horrible. So I was sitting there trying not to push, like didn't know what counter pressure was, but I'm just like trying to hold my butt in basically, and I didn't know what it was, but it felt right. And so finally, I think it was like he was born at 1:09, so it had to be like right before 1. I started pushing because they said I pushed for 12 minutes, and I just finally, I felt so good to push. I was just like, finally, I can push. I've been wanting to push for what feels like an eternity. It could have been like 15 minutes, but it felt like forever. So I remember when his head was out, or partially out, they were like, his head's out, you like reach down and touch your baby. And I went, no. I like did not want to feel that. I was like, it's gonna take me out of the game. I'm gonna freak out. Like I didn't think all of that, but that's what I just like knew. I was like, there's no way, no. And then like 2 seconds later, he was born. Oh, excuse me. It's like really overcast outside. It makes me want to take a nap. Yeah, and there's that really cool feeling of just like the slipperiness of the baby, just like for the rest of the body coming out. And immediately I start bawling. My husband's bawling. My dad is bawling. I think my mom was crying too, but like she took a picture. Like they put the baby on my chest, and my husband was like, I wish I could show you I'll see if I can add it to the video. But I'm like crying looking at my husband, and my mom, I feel bad still for like barking at her, but she had her phone out, and I was like, what are you doing with that phone in my face? Like, she was taking a picture. One of my favorite pictures ever. It's just like a grainy cell phone picture But I mean, it wasn't like a flip phone picture. It still like was a little bit better quality, but it's just like, I love it. Like, I absolutely love that picture because it's the first moment that, like, when you have a baby for the first time, and I know not everybody experiences this immediately, but for the people that do experience it immediately, it can be this really overwhelming sense of love. Like, you created this human. And for me, I felt like, wow, like I created this human, and it feels like, okay, my love was like one drop in the ocean. And I thought my love was an ocean. And then I realized, like, when I had him, that my love was just a drop in this giant real ocean. And like, it's like my capacity for love grew so much that I never even imagined. And my love for my partner grew even more. It was just, it's crazy and emotional feeling. I don't even remember pushing out the placenta. I briefly remember getting stitched up because I did have a 2nd degree tear, but it really wasn't. I was so happy that I had my baby. I think I said I did it. And he was perfect. He pooped on me like the minute he was born. Like, I had like meconium just like smeared on me. Gross. Tar poops are not cute, but I didn't care. It was the best feeling ever. It was just fantastic. I'm gonna share my second birth story, but I'm maybe gonna share that in a couple days or next week, because I feel like this one birth story deserves its own place. It's the birth that made me want to become a doula. And I know there's a lot of doulas that become doulas because of a negative experience and wanting to help people not have negative experiences and feel loved. I want to help people have good experiences, but it's because I had such a great experience. Yes, I had to hold the baby. I had to hold in my pushes, which I'm not a fan of. But overall, I felt super loved and supported and just constantly reassured of my greatness and of my power. And I want to be that for people. I want to be that for clients and friends, and I want people to see how powerful they are, even when it's super hard to see. I want to be that mirror. I want to hold up that mirror to show them how absolutely amazing and beautiful and powerful they are. Anyways, I think that's all I have to say now. My son is 5. He's 5.5. He's going to be 6 in October. Oh, he was born on a Saturday, 10 days after my birthday. So that was a really great birthday present. And he was born at 38 and 6. So 38 weeks and 6 days. So not quite full term, but he was term, at term. And being a mom has been the greatest gift, and also sometimes really hard. I can share more about my postpartum experience. I guess I can do that in this video because it's really still connected to the birth. I had a pretty easy postpartum. I guess backtracking a little bit, I lost my uncle when I was 5 months pregnant. I'm the one that found him. He just passed away in his sleep, but I was the one that found him. And I think being pregnant saved me, because if he was like a big brother to me, if I hadn't been pregnant and being caring about this human inside of me, I might have just made stupid choices and like drank my sadness away. And we all know that's not actually how you solve and work through stuff. So I actually had to process my grief. But anyways, postpartum, it was hard, but it was nice because we live in a multi-generational home. So it was nice to have the help of just being like, hey, can I take a shower? Like, hold the baby. Like, everyone wanted to hold the baby. Like, that made them very happy. I'm thinking about my nanny specifically. Like, she loved holding the baby. I don't want this to be a crying video, but I'm realizing that I miss them so much. Breastfeeding. It went mostly easy. My son had milk soy protein intolerance, so I cut out milk, and then I had 5 Oreos, and I realized that, because I was like, oh, they're vegan, and they're loaded with soy, and he had a bad reaction that night. So I figured out that he was also intolerant to soy. Thankfully, it was just those 2 things. And we breastfed for 19 months. The Haka is a pump. So if you use the full-on suction of it every time you nurse, you're going to create an oversupply. I had an oversupply for the whole time we nursed. I tried block feeding. I tried ice packs. I tried all the things except for Cabot. I didn't want to dry up my milk. I just wanted a little bit less. It just didn't work. I just got mastitis a bunch of times, and I would try and nurse and pump when I got mastitis. I would take sunflower lecithin. I would drink a whole bunch of orange juice and water, and I would nurse and pump like crazy until the clog was completely gone. I took antibiotics twice, but I realized, or once or twice, but I realized that it was just literally because of a clog. It wasn't because I was getting bacteria in me. My clogs mimic it, period. Like, I start getting feverish. It's also how I know that I never had the flu as an adult, because I had never felt that poorly until I had mastitis. But the Haka once in a while is great. I stopped using it recently, but if you use it like once or twice a day, it can be a really great way to build your stash without oversupplying too much. An aversion is normal. And some feelings you might experience, some feelings that I experienced with my aversion, I was getting rage. I was feeling snippy at my child. Like, I would be nursing and I would just feel like my skin would feel like it was crawling, and I wanted to like growl. I think I did growl once. I literally like made a growl like an animal, and I thought I was crazy until I went to a La Leche League meeting and I said like what I was experiencing, and she's like, oh yeah, this is normal in the mammal world. Wolves do this all the time when they're basically ready to stop nursing, like whether the pups are big enough or their body's ready to have another litter, like when they are ready. And my son was like 33 pounds. He was huge because of the oversupply. With this baby, I've actually fed basically 1.5 babies the whole entire time, because I was donating. But I didn't donate a lot with him. So he was just eating like 2 babies worth of food. So he gained a lot. This baby's normal size. But that's for her video. But I think that's mostly all I had to say. Like, never quit on a hard day with breastfeeding. I gave myself 5 hard days in a row. And then I realized it wasn't beneficial for me. So it really wasn't beneficial for him either. Because if I was a pain in the butt and not being nice and not feeling good, then he was picking up on that. So after 5 days of that in a row, I was like, okay, I'm done. So we weaned over the next month. So he was 19 months when we stopped. And he's actually the one that didn't ask for it. The last night when he didn't ask for it, I said, okay, I'm not giving him any tomorrow, because he didn't ask for milkies before bed. I'm also glad I'm making this video because it's reminding me to cherish these moments a little bit more. Because sometimes I'll be like, okay, like I'm ready for go have my me time after the kids are in bed. But I'll have a lot of me time when they're done nursing, when she's done nursing. Anyways, I'm getting really emotional. I'm going to go. I said my birth story in postpartum. If y'all have any questions or you want to share a birth story, I would be totally open to doing like a Zoom type sharing video if you would like to try that. And I hope y'all have an amazing day, and thank you for listening. If you want to like it or subscribe, I'm going to post content about birth and babies and parenthood. Yeah.